Obviously, since Friday night, I've had a chance just to reiterate how much I appreciate all the guys putting good work to get into Lincoln and pull off what we did. Our offensive MVPs were a slew of guys: Pat Bryant, Tanner Heckel, Josh McCray on the offensive line. We gave it to J.C. Melvin, Cruzzi, and B. Henderson, who was a pseudo/tight end. And then Luke Altmaier again played another phenomenal game. I thought it was Pro today. He was also named co-Big Ten offensive MVP, and then also put on the grade 8 for the O'Brien top quarterbacks in the nation, and put on the list for the rest of the year, which super excited for him and where he is. Plus, I saw he just came across with the Jim Rome interview opportunity, so he's getting some national allure. Defensive MVPs, D. Rose, Seth, all three outside linebackers, Seth, Gabe, and Alec, Dennis Briggs inside, along with T-Raw. And then both offensively and defensively, we gave the entire look team MVPs just because really challenged them to put on the best look that we could to simulate Nebraska. They've been doing a really good job through 3 games, but going into Big Ten play, there's just certain things that every team does that we ask them to emulate sometimes. Just early on in life, someone told me one time, right, never put another man's name on your back, right? So I've never worn a jersey. I've never worn a customized jersey of any other person, but during the course of the week, we ask our guys to wear the numbers of the person they're representing, right? And I always tell them, take pride in how you do things and what you do to kind of give us the best opportunity to win on Saturday. So that was really huge and apparent from us last week. Not only our look team players, but our look team coaches. This new rule that allows us to have all of our young coaches and an analyst coach has just been, it's invaluable in our preparation. Just cruelly amazing. We'll probably talk a little bit about that during the bye week, but just the work our young coaches and some of these first-year coaches in our program have done, just absolutely amazing. Special teams MVP, huge, just for not only his punts, but also he had an erratic snap that he pulled down, was really critical and clutch play. They didn't get a lot of snaps, but the snaps they played, Tanner Heckel and Jaheim Clark, were absolutely outstanding. They were really a huge part of our final special teams MVP, Hank Beatty, who had basically 3 returns, averaged over 20-yard a return, almost took one to the house. We sniped him. Barna got knocked back and kind of knocked him down, but otherwise he probably would have had one go to the house. Obviously had a little adversity early in the game, and we always talk and preach, it's not what happens, how you react to what happens. And Hank Beatty comes from incredible stock, mom and dad, great people, from a Rochester program that is obviously second to none. To have a high school coach that reached 200 wins as quick as Derek had, you just know what that program's all about, and he's brought that same thing here to our program. So just super excited for Hank. I think he's starting to get something special. Our look team MVPs on special teams, Blaine Sisson and Sage Luther are transferring, and it's done an awesome job down the look team. So really excited about the week behind us, right? Stayed out of it pretty healthy. Henry Boyer was kind of right on the verge of playing. We actually traveled him. It's been my policy pretty much, if you're not going to play, you're not going to travel, but want to give Henry a chance to get cleared. He couldn't get cleared in time for the game, but should be with us tomorrow at practice. T. Strain and Aiden Lawfrey played extremely well for the reps I got in there. Didn't have any setbacks with them, so had a couple guys get some soft tissue things just during the game, but nobody of significance. Everybody Zachari was cleared to go back in the way we ran in overtime. Didn't need it, but and then also defensively had a couple guys were out momentarily, but brought them back. So that's behind us. A tremendous opportunity this week to play a top 10 team on the road. Obviously an environment that is one of the best in college football, an offense that has a new coordinator, as Aaron mentioned, right? Like a lot of familiarity with their offensive coordinator coming from Kansas to where he is. I heard Aaron said that he learned a lot of football by going against this guy. I wish he would have just asked me. I could have helped him out. But from now on, I'll call the other coordinator to tell my defense what to do. Just a lot of really good growth. I think in preparation for this game, you see a lot of things, but he also carries a lot of the Penn State traditions. Obviously, James, in his background, they're using multiple quarterbacks. I think offensive line from tackle to tackle is probably the best group that we've played. Some are a little bit new to the game, inexperienced, but very talented players. By far, tackle to tackle, the best group we faced. They have a group of tight ends, wide receivers, and running backs that are above average to elite players in the Big Ten Conference. Defensively, I just have a huge. I've loved Coach Allen ever since I've been around him, and what he brings to the table, and to bring over his experience. And obviously, we've gone against Indiana the last several years. You see a little bit of that, but also a little carryover from what they've done there. They're extremely talented, especially on the edges defensively. on all three levels, up front, on the linebacker core, and the secondary. Very, very gifted to have some wrinkles in the kicking game. They got a couple lefties sprinkled in amongst their specialists. So, it'll be an environment that hopefully, one of the things you gain with experience is the ability to do better, right? And obviously, we did a lot of good things Friday night in Lincoln, but this will be taking it to whole nother level. Did want to also say thanks to Matt Rule. Just I know I didn't find out until afterwards that he had reached out to Aaron. Just shows the kind of person he is, the kind of man he was, to reach out to him. And I didn't ask what the note was or said, but I know it meant a lot to Aaron, and just a tremendous respect for that program. Obviously got a W and all that goes into it, but Matt's all about the game, his journey and our journey. We've kind of had some multiple stops, and to really get a chance to be around his program, huge respect. That was a great environment on Friday night, and that crowd and that team and that organization, their fan base, have a lot to be proud of. I'm sure they're going to be very successful the rest of the year. So with that, open it up.
I got a two-parter for you, quick one.
Yeah.
What does it mean for you to play for work for an AD who played here at the school that you're working at? That's the first one. What does that mean for you? What's
I've said it all along. In my experience as a head coach, I was very blessed. In my first head coaching opportunity, I played for a guy that, even though he didn't play at Wisconsin, Coach Alvarez played for Nebraska, right? And to have that as an athletic director, I just kind of thought that was a norm. I didn't realize that was the exception. And so, as I journeyed to other places, I've kind of always tracked to kind of get back to that type of partnership. And Josh, to walk the walk here, to every day when I get off that elevator, his face is smiling. There are two spots for the academic All-American role, and to have someone in that role. So he obviously balanced into playing the NFL for, I believe it was 6 different teams, over a 5-year window. It's not just someone that kind of played here and was okay. He was exceptional, right? And then to throw that into the experiences he's had, I think we're always molded by the experiences we've been through. And Josh had the NFL experience, then he got into the law school, and obviously went into the working world outside of football. And then went to the small school, background in administration, both in Wisconsin and St. Louis, and then to get his dream moment here, to walk with him daily. It was, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. So Friday we get done, and obviously a great locker room, but we, ever since last week, right, we've been tracking the weather, right, and it kept getting pushed back, and I remember Mark Torson, my chief of staff, said, "Hey, really probably not going to have any problems until after the game," and I'm like, "Oh, perfect," right? So. We get there, and I told the locker room after the game, I said, "Hey, as fast as you can get ready, let's get on it and get home, and get a chance to get back to Champaign and avoid some weather." And we literally got on the plane, sat down, and it got fogged over here in Champaign, and we basically sat on the runway for a couple hours. I know I didn't walk into my house, so I came right from the airport to home, and I think it was after 4, and I imagine a lot of our players. So. For 2 hours or however long I was next to Josh, and we chatted on the way over on Thursday, but to win the game in that environment and to get a couple hours on the plane next year AD, and we talked about things coming up. We talked about during our bye week. We talked about things in the horizon. He and I are both heavily involved in administration. That's pretty special. Is that too long?
No, you're right. I went one more part. How quickly did that relationship develop here? Like, was it immediate? Were you quickly, right away in sync?
Yeah, I would go back. I think the first time, I always say this, right? Like, I do think first impressions last a lifetime, and I literally think the first time I ever met Josh, we were in Arizona. I was a head coach, I believe, at Wisconsin. Might have been at Arkansas. I had to be at Arkansas probably. And we were at Biltmore Hotel. He was getting a cup of coffee. I was getting a cup of coffee. Although he doesn't drink coffee, maybe he's getting a bottle of water, knowing him. And we kind of just bumped, right? And I remember I'm like, dude, that's a big dude, right? Like he's AD at Illinois, yada yada. And then as this thing kind of played out, the year before I got the job here, I was in the NFL, and I'd always kind of had an idea that this is a place that it would, for me personally, would be an idea that I just had always recruited against Illinois. And I played here. I thought it was interesting. Bret gives us a bunch of stats, but the last time there was a top 20 matchup on the road for Illinois was in 1991, number 16, number 14, whatever it was. What it was? 15-13. I was at the University of Iowa as a player in 1991, and they were obviously here. And for that to happen, the last time this happened was when I was in college. That shows how long it's been. But I knew this place had that ability if you could get it to flip, right? And literally when Josh reached out to me that first night, I came downstairs. My wife and I were ecstatic. The next day, I think the next day I met with the chancellor, and then Friday it happened, and it was pretty instant. And I would just say, in my professional life, to share this walk with him, like on a daily, just even if we don't see each other, there's usually probably daily communication about, hey, just reaching out, how you doing? You know, shoot, last year I know during certain times of our out of season, like I know he was going through things, right? I know how hard that basketball situation was to navigate through, and I know how much he cares for our student athletes. So I reached out to him several times. It's an awesome relationship, and one that hopefully continues and grows for years to come.
Coach, there seems to be a pretty good coach-player relationship between Barry Lunny and Luke Allmeyer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how important has that been for Luke's development and for the improvement of the offense?
Yeah, I say all the time in our building, every time as a coach, you know, when you're interacting with a player, whether he plays for you or plays for someone other position, other side of the ball, every conversation you have, you're either building or tearing down a relationship. And I think Barry has been very intentional in his relationship with Luke since we started recruiting him, going through last season, and then definitely from January on, just the intentionality that Barry poured into him about the things that need to be better, and to be honest, the openness and the eagerness and the I would say just the vulnerability that Luke showed to grow in this past out of season has just been paid back tenfold. Not just with our coaches, with our players. So yeah, I think, you know, Luke's kind of the opposite of Barry in the fact that, like, Luke is a very kind of calm. Barry, he gets a little bit rattled or like a little bit jittery, and he'll let you know that he's, you know, excited. There was a moment on Saturday where our coach to player got a little sideways, and Barry was extremely frustrated, and I saw Luke give one of these, and then they just signaled into plays and handled that moment. We scored a touchdown. I think the presence, those two really come together pretty nicely.
Brett, to dovetail off that, I got to give Pat Bryant credit after this game, because he said that he thought the tablets have been a game changer for Luke, in the sense of there's not an I think or I know anymore, or I feel anymore. There's an I know what happened here, or I know what's going to work here. Have you gotten that sense too?
Oh, incredibly. You know, and even go back to, you know, the first time we could use them was last spring, and the person that came and brought our tablets had come from three other Big Ten teams that had used or had attempted to use tablets during the spring, and we had a whole plan. We met as a staff, we met as players, we showed them how to use them, and that person made reference to Joe Maggio. He said, like, listen, I don't know what's going on in other places. All I know is that what had happened in three other places before I got here, and you guys by far had the best setup, plan, action, and the players were engaged. They were fighting over the tablets. I literally was in a brief meeting today with our personnel department, Jay Kaiser, who I've been with Jay since we actually ironically met back at K-State. He was in the NFL for a number of years with both the Dolphins and Buccaneers. And Jay, because we're on the road, we have personnel start to hand out tablets. And he was talking about he was in charge of inside and outside backers handing out tablets, and how the players just immediately took the tablets, and as soon as a coach put one down, they picked it up. And we're watching not only plays they were in, but plays they weren't in. So I think the learning curve of our guys, the testimonial to who they believe in, is at a high that they probably never even thought of, and they probably aren't aware of it. They just think it goes on everywhere else, but I promise you it doesn't.
But after the game,
Yeah.
you told us, and we saw the video from the locker room, you said all you've done is make next week even bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, what is it with this team that you can have those open and kind of frank discussions?
Well, not to steal your thunder, but I've said that every week, right? This one just happened to get caught on camera. Like these guys just get a little liberal with their camera use. But I every time I've been in this position, you know, what I've learned early on. I remember my first year we were a 12-1 football team, and really all we did as we won games, every game got a little bit bigger, right? It's just getting magnified at Illinois because it hasn't been done in a very long time, or even when we had our run in 2022, right? That the newness to that was very, very unique. So I just want those guys to understand, like, it's great, right? But it's just now it's kind of every week you kind of set the standard over again, right? And you know, you've heard our guys say 1-0. You've heard our guys, you know, I saw Xavier write 1-0 on the TV camera, right? Just little things that we talk about. You see it regurgitate right in front of you, and yeah, it is. I mean, Penn State's made this big, right? They're a program that's been at the top of college football for a long time. They're undefeated and ranked in top 10 for a reason. They got really good players. They got phenomenal coaches. They got a great environment, and now we just get to come be a part of it.
You and James, a couple of games have come down to the wire. How critical has it been, the ability you've had to rotate guys, especially defensively, throughout the game to help you in those fourth quarter or overtime situations?
Yeah, there are certain positions it's just kind of hard to rotate, right? Quarterback, right? Like, you don't really rotate quarterback. you got number 4, number 13 playing at a high level on the perimeters. As much as you want to rotate other guys in, it's really hard to take one of those guys out. Tanner Arkin is a really good tight end. It's hard to pull him out of the game. Offensive line-wise, we don't have a lot of rotation. Guys are playing extremely well, and you don't do it. But defensively, it's kind of easier, right? You can sub guys in and out. We want to be fresh. Defensive players realize that at any given moment, might be called upon to make a 30-yard sprint, that if I can't do it, I can't do it, and we could all be suffering, right? So our guys are very selfless. They'll raise their hand. They'll pull themselves out. We talk about depth. For me, defensively in the NFL, one of the things I learned, once you get above 285, the players, you don't want them to probably max over 30, 40 snaps. If you do kind of have diminishing return, Johnny Newton was a little bit of an exception to that, but I would say overall, most part, that's pretty real. And then in the back end, especially, the more the flexibility between Matt Bailey, Xavier Scott, and Miles Scott is that's very special. That's something that we had a couple years back, and to have that flexibility now, and then to have a couple corners show up, I thought to have Terrence Brooks come in and play the way he did. Caleb Patterson was down for a little bit. He came back. Torrey Cox came in. Jaheim Clark's playing at a high level, so I think that depth is really starting to be apparent.
Right, besides Kirk, you and James have been in this league as long as anybody.
Mm-hmm.
What stood out about his programs?
James's?
Yeah.
Well, I first got to know James through, I guess I knew him when he was an assistant, but then when I was in the SEC, he was a Vandy, and obviously what he did there was, exceptional. And then, not surprising when he came in his league, and when I was here, I knew how special that place was. Obviously, Joe Pa there for a long time. O'Brien came in and did some good things, and he got out. So presented the opportunity for James, and he's done exactly what I would assume he would. He's continued to recruit at a very high level. He and I when I was at Arkansas, I had an opportunity to get together on quite a few Nike trips and got to know him personally and just see how he's driven, highly intelligent, football IQ awareness. Probably doesn't make it overly complicated. You can see the kids love playing for him. They don't fundamentally beat themselves. They're very, very good at what they do, and again, go in the out of season and pull in. Obviously, you lose your D coordinator, similar to what I did when we lost Ryan, right? Like, he needed to find someone to step into that role. He went outside and found Manny, right? And then when Manny left, he went out and found Tom. So just a really good job of replacing coaches, and then offensively, when there was transition, to go get a coordinator that's just proven what he can do and didn't get caught up in the resume, more about the production. That's very impressive.
Is there anything to going on the road that's worked for you guys? You guys have a lot of success here. When
Yep.
you're going on the road, is there anything to that? Or
To be honest, it's kind of a building process. When I first got here, I looked at what they had done in the past travel-wise. I learned this one from a previous experience when I was at. Listen, I took a lot of great things from all the coaches I was around, but one of the things I really took from Kirk was to try and make home and away games be as similar as possible. I coached with Hayden, and I played for Hayden, and there was a lot of difference between home and away. So Kirk was kind of one of the first ones that introduced me to that, and obviously I was done really well on the road. And then I went to Kansas State, and I love Coach Snyder. It was very, but he kind of had the Hayden thought, right? Like, there was a lot of differences when home and away, and when we were at Kansas State, we did a lot of really good things. We did beat Nebraska. Nebraska was the first time in 50 years, but I just had always kind of thought, if I get that opportunity, I'm going to try to make home and away as similar as possible. So went to Wisconsin, and Coach Alvarez kind of blended it as well. He was a little bit like Kirk. He tried to make home and away very similar. And then when I took over, like, we literally, our Fridays, home and away. So I made this huge presentation on last Wednesday, which was our travel meeting. So the night before we travel, we always have a travel meeting. And I started off with the itinerary, right? And I showed that it was at Nebraska. I go, is everybody clear on this, right? We're going to Nebraska, right? And then the next picture was a picture of our airplane in the air. And I said, hey, has everybody been on one of these, right? This is what we're going to do. It's very safe. There's these jets, there's wheels, right? And went through that. And then I showed them a picture of the hotel in Lincoln. It was the Graduate. Last week we were downtown Champaign, the last 3 weeks, but this is a hotel. I showed them the inside of the hotel, there's a lobby. I showed them where they're going to have a meeting room. Showed them the dining facility. I showed them the facilities that we were going to, the Nebraska field. Talked a little bit more in detail of that, because there's some nuances where the play clock is, where it isn't, and kind of explained that I learned that through one of my favorite players all time, Russell Wilson. I was getting ready to play in a road game with him, and he kept looking in this upper left-hand corner all the time, and there's nothing there. And I grabbed him after practice. He came up to watch film. I said, what do you keep looking at? And he goes, well, I Googled on the internet and found out where the play clock is. We were playing, I think we were maybe at Michigan State, and I said, he goes, you know what I mean? I go, oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean. What he's talking about, right? So you learn from your players, right? And so yeah, we went through a lot of detail of trying to make home and away as similar as possible. But it's obviously different, and I think then the part that our guys really relish in is just the opportunity to. I think we always are playing the underdog role. We always say we don't have one chip on our shoulder, we have two. I think that plays out a little bit.
What makes Beaver Stadium unique, and do you think it being a night game kind of changes the environment?
You know, I'll go back to the first time I ever went there. Wasn't a great result. We were down 28-0 at the start of the first quarter, or second quarter. Bill Brazier, God rest his soul, one of the greatest men I've ever been around. Incredible teacher to me. I was up in a box with him. I was a young GA, and it was 28-0 in the first quarter, and he took 28 times 2 and came up with 56, and he put 56. I don't know why he did it. He went 56 to 56 and came up with 112. He looked at me, he goes, they could beat us 112 to nothing. And I just never forget that moment, because I was watching his work right alongside me, and I just go back that moment. It was such an incredible crowd. You know, I've been in the Big Ten a long time, but for me as a GA to see that for the first time was really overwhelmingly amazing, right? It's kind of like a spaceship out in the middle of nowhere, and you know, there's dress. I don't know if they're going to be in blue and white or whatever they're going to be in this weekend. They're going to be dressed, right? And it's probably going to be one or the other. I know they're calling for a whiteout energy, whatever the hell that means. But I would just tell you that, like, the part that really I think stands out is their fans are intelligent. They've got tradition, very similar to Nebraska. They've been doing this for a long time, right? And Penn State fans are accustomed to great football. I remember Joe Paterno hearing at a speech, like, he was talking about uniforms. He said, I don't like our uniforms. He said, but everybody knows it's Penn State, right? And I just have that in my mind of what this program has been built on. The people that have coached there, the success they've had. One of the greatest moments in I said that about jerseys, right? But I was with Nike. We were in Hawaii, and I come around the corner, and Franco Harris is standing there. Right, and he came to see Sue Paterno. Like, I was just like, that's the ultimate. I mean, Joe had passed, like, of a player to come over and see a coach's wife. I was like, whew, that's a sign of the program, you know. So, huge respect for that. That's pretty cool.
Brett, you had said that Johnny had the ability to be elite on snap 50 and snap 1. Does T-Raw have a little bit of that in him, or did what he do on Friday night just super?
Well, I don't think T-Raw's seen 50 yet, but just because of the sub packages we play. But T-Raw, in my opinion, of a 120-man roster, was probably the most excited I had been in my coaching career to see a guy play this year, just because I know what he's gone through from last January to where we are today, the empowerment he's taken, the voice he carries, the knowledge, now and the ability. I promise you, I meet with scouts every day, and when I get a chance to talk about T-Raw Edwards, I talk about what he was, but what he has become. And I think it's just a sign. There was just a little play yesterday where it was a 2nd and 1. He kind of corkscrewed out of there, made a tackle for no gain. And like I played that position. I know how hard that is, right? But also just his demeanor. He's a Columbus. He's kind of come here in a weird way, right? Kind of like me, I guess. He was a Columbus, Ohio guy. Who went to Northwestern and found his way here, and now it seems like he belonged, right? So I was from here, went west, went a little bit more west, a little more north, went a little bit east, came back, right? Like, I feel like I've been waiting to come here for a long time, and it's just like, we've had a backup, or not a backup, we've had a nose that had been a backup as a junior come in my last 3 seasons and play at a high level, and to me, that's a lot of credit to them, but also Terrence Jamison. Like, J-Mo is an incredibly talented coach, defensive line-wise, the way our guys play, the way Dennis Briggs is playing, Alex Bray, Gabe Ackus as a defensive lineman. That's just pretty special what those guys are doing.
But Kaden on Friday talked about maybe for him, like, simplifying a little bit, getting begging in the run game. What have you seen from him in that regard?
Yeah, I think because he looks like he's 30, like, everybody wants him to act like he's older than he is, or play, he hasn't played a lot of football, and even in high school, you think about it, he played quarterback a lot, and the running back position, as easy as we think it is, if you're big, athletic, and run, it's just that easy. But Thad Ward has done a tremendous job. All 4 of those guys have a different skill set, and I think we're finding out what kind of Kaden does very, very well. He's the first, letting him go back on kickoff coverage, right? Because when we got lean with Aiden out and Josh a little banged up, I didn't want to get that down. So, Kaden, I thought it was a true testament to him in that first game to score a touchdown and run on and kick off the next play, and take Josh out so Josh could have more reps in. I think he's an incredibly selfless. Again, these things don't happen by chance. Caden's mom is Jen Fagan is probably as good a human being as you're going to find. Grandpa shows up every game, and I get to see him grin ear to ear, right? Like, just to know the story of these kids and have them come to full life in front of us is pretty awesome.
Thank you, guys.